Thank you everyone for joining and for tuning in. We're going to be talking about the cannabis industry today, where it's headed, how testing labs are faring with all these major challenges that we see in the headlines. There's so many changes, and a good consultant is definitely something that I think everyone needs these days, and some good solutions. Today's guest, Ini Afia, and we are just thrilled that he's here today. He draws upon 20 years of leadership experience as a microbiologist, an analytical chemist, a lab director in the pharmaceutical and nutraceutical space, and of course in the cannabis industry. And he's also the CEO of Consultation, which is a top consulting firm in the lab space, both in the traditional lab and in the cannabis space. So needless to say, we're very happy to have Ini here today. Today's episode is sponsored by Slinger Labs. Whether it's LIMS, ERPs, or customer portals, Slinger Labs is your ultimate low-code software solution. For more information, click the links below to go to the Slinger Labs website or book a meeting. So, with that in mind, let's get right down to it. One big news headline that came out recently was that 1/3 of testing labs in California could actually test the cannabis flower. So 2/3 could not. Only 1/3 could because of the inability to meet standardized testing methods. Now, why has a standardized test been so elusive for so many labs, would you say?
Honestly, I think it's because labs had a hard time kind of grasping onto what the state put out. You got to keep in mind, labs that have been around for a number of years, the cannabis industry, the time flies differently. If you're in it for a year, it's like being in a regular industry for 5 years, let's say. So labs have been innovating the methodology over all these years. They've been spending time, developing methods with the various matrices, complex matrices that cannabis products come in. And, they're fine tuning this, and maybe they think they've got the best method that provides, if you're playing by rules, right, provides the most reliable, consistent results, and they fine tune it according to the instrumentation. Everything's been set. And then the lab comes with this method that's sort of, I don't want to, the state comes with this method that's sort of archaic, right? We'll just say archaic, but it's not as innovative as what labs have been used to. So now they have to sort of go backwards and try to meet regulations using a method that is going to level the playing field, and maybe a method that they're not comfortable setting up, right? So now they've got to start to implement that. And on top of that, I think this new method essentially ended up lowering people's THC numbers, right? So for whatever reason, and we could go down a rabbit hole on that one. THC numbers and general cannabinoid numbers come lower, right? Particularly THCA. And folks most likely did not want to move into that new method quite yet, because they see, hey, let me just hold on to these clients for as long as I possibly can. Could it be another 2 weeks before I implement this method? Another month? When is the latest deadline before I have to do this? So it's like, hey, I'm going to keep using my method for as long as I can until I'm fully forced to do this. And I think that's one contributing factor.
Do you feel a lot of these kinds of problems are just inherent in the growing pains of what's still a very young industry? Or is there something darker, or is there something more dysfunctional about these things? Do you see them basically overcoming these issues in the near future?
Yes, they'll definitely overcome these issues in the future, because I think a lot of the other industries went through the same thing, environmental. I do think, yes, it's a portion about, being the nascent industry, growing up and getting to understand what they're really doing. But secondly, it's the kind of people in the industry that you're dealing with. Yes, there's a lot of great scientists that come into this industry, and those that are doing it with really great intentions, wanting to help folks who have, I hear a lot of personal stories of families that have been affected with some kind of condition that was helped by cannabis and whatnot, coming in here and trying to provide a service. But let's not get it wrong. Everybody's in here to make money, right? If you weren't in here to make money, you'd maybe, I don't know, start a nonprofit. But so the problem is that the people in here are a kind of a different group of people. They're in here to make money. They've been promised ability to make a lot of money in a short period of time, and usually that doesn't pan out. So you end up having folks waiting for the investment to pay back. So now it's like, how do I push it so that my investment pays back as quickly as possible? And that's the kind of place we're in now, where the ownership, the investors are pushing, and of course, with what it's getting pushed in the dispensaries and the clientele wanting, it's just a slippery slope of, okay, we will need to make our money back. What can we do to make it back? How can we get more revenue when it comes to the lab space? How can we get more revenue? Well, one, it's turnaround time. Two, it's the numbers you're giving the client. Are you on point? Are you higher than the others? And three, what are people really wanting out there? So it all plays a factor.
Right. So it's basically compliance versus the demands of the fiscal aspect of the business. You know, it's been stated recently that the best way to guard against, in terms of these compliance issues, to guard against them is to have additional audits built into an ERP system that would maybe possibly triple check some of
Mm-hmm.
these types of marijuana
Mm-hmm.
compliance or these marijuana THC levels and things like that. What is your take on the power of the ERP, as well as adding in additional audit points like that?
You know, it's necessary. And I think, folks in the analytical testing industry have this type of things. Um, I do think it's necessary and it needs to be done more. However, I feel like what I've seen is folks come in seemingly with great intentions. They do things to meet the regulations. They have SOPs written, they have documentation, they have their full quality systems in place, quality manual, all of that. Great. They submit that, they get accredited, they get licensed, they're doing business, and they start doing flying by the seat of their pants, right? Those SOPs are just, now put away. You have cowboy scientists coming in and want to, change a method into what they know instead of following what the SOP says. Folks on the instrument are doing things without permission. I mean, things happen. These are just human being things, right? Some of them are out of negligence, right? Some of them are just being naive and just doing things. So I think folks need to follow what they set out to do in the first place. You have an SOP, you have a quality system, you even hire a quality manager. Listen to those folks. Do what you said you were going to do. I mean, after all, that's what it's all about. Getting ISO accredited is doing what you wrote down and said that you were going to do and what you did. Not just having an SOP that says, oh, here's my method, but really, I decided to do this method that's actually not even written down. So if you kind of do those things, it helps you, one, stay compliant, and two, just have more traceability in your data. And that's what we're missing in some instances.
Right. Well, one of the main elements that we've talked about previously that really drives the industry in terms of the cannabis space is speed, 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 speed.
Hmm.
And yet you see so many companies resist bringing in a LIMS system. A lot of them do it with their own spreadsheets and things like that. Considering the importance of speed, what is it the key resistance of a quality LIMS, would you say? And what kind of difference can that mean for a cannabis company having a good LIMS?
Yeah, honestly, a good limbs is important, especially for the cannabis space. I mean, especially, and we're going to get into that. Folks, the resistance I think stems around costs, right? Yeah, the limb systems generally cost is a big factor in your lab cost. But guess what? You didn't go into the lab business wanting to be cheap and not really doing the due diligence into what things are going to cost, right? You want to hire top talent, you have to pay them. You want to get a great system that not only tracks traceability but is part of the quality systems. You have to pay for that as well. So I think people end up trying to save costs by, oh yeah, I can just do this with a spreadsheet. Oh, we don't really need that limbs yet. Let's just wait till we have 100 samples a day before we can pay for that. It's like, no, you need to get these things done in the beginning. It's critical to your business. The traceability is, I mean, it's paramount. So think about it. In the cannabis space, you have all these assays, heavy metals, potency, pesticides, micro. You have in one lab all these things that need to get done concurrently, and in most cases reported within 2 days, which is unheard of, right? And you don't think it's important to have a really great system that can track those and get those efficiently done? I think, that's where a lot of people go wrong by not thinking about how important the limbs is and how critical it is to the heart of the laboratory.
Well, Ini, thank you so much for joining us today. So much great information there. Hopefully, it was of great service to our viewers, and we'd like to thank our viewers for tuning in. We'll be doing this a lot more, and please join us next time to learn more about the cannabis testing lab industry and all labs. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.